He walked into the cafe like anyone else, same smile, same dreams, same right to be there. But the moment he sat down, the whispers started. The waitress froze. The manager's eyes narrowed. Within minutes, what should have been a quiet morning turned into a public humiliation, one that would be filmed, shared, and twisted beyond recognition. He never raised his voice. He never fought back. But what happened next would force an entire town to question who they really were. David Cole had everything most people only dreamed of: success, wealth, and respect. A self-made billionaire, he'd built his empire from the ground up, never forgetting where he came from or the faces that once doubted him. Yet, behind the polished suits and luxury cars, David carried something heavier than gold, the quiet sting of judgment that never seemed to fade. Even in boardrooms where his name carried power, he could still see it, that flicker in their eyes when they realized who he was before they noticed what he'd achieved. But David never showed it. He'd learned to smile through it, to let his silence speak louder than their assumptions. Now, he was about to make one of the biggest decisions of his life: to settle down. His fiancée, Anya, seemed perfect, elegant, charming, and devoted. At least, that's what everyone thought. But lately, David had noticed things, small things, that didn't sit right. The way she spoke when she thought no one was listening. The look in her eyes when she mentioned his money. Still, he pushed the doubts aside. Love, he told himself, deserves trust. But deep down, a quiet voice whispered, what if she's only here for the fortune, not the man behind it? David couldn't shake the feeling that something about Anya wasn't right. The laughter that once felt warm now sounded rehearsed. The smiles perfect, but hollow. So he did something no one expected. He decided to test the truth. One morning, without warning, David disappeared from his own mansion. The staff was told he'd flown out of the country for business. But in reality, he stayed closer than anyone realized. Dressed in worn clothes, moving with a slight limp, David returned to his home under a new identity. A quiet, disabled groundskeeper hired through an agency. No one recognized him, not even Anya. From the moment he entered, he saw everything differently. The same house, the same people, but a new truth unfolding. Some smiled politely, others barely looked at him. Anya barely acknowledged his existence, except when giving orders. Her tone cold, clipped, dismissive. And every time she spoke to him, he heard something else beneath the words: disgust. She laughed with her friends about people like him. When he accidentally dropped a tray, she sighed loudly, muttering that some folks just weren't made for real work. David bit his tongue, heart pounding. Every insult cut deeper, not because it was about disability, but because it revealed something darker, something about race, power, and worth. Then came the moment that changed everything. One afternoon, while Anya was entertaining guests by the pool, David overheard her conversation. One of her friends asked if she'd ever actually met her fiancé's family. Anya laughed, a cold, sharp laugh that pierced him. "Oh, please," she said. "He's not like them. He's one of the good ones. The kind you marry if you want to retire early." The words hit like a slap. The guests laughed, and David felt the world tilt beneath him. He'd built everything from nothing, yet here he was, invisible in his own home, hearing his fiancée mock the very roots he'd worked so hard to rise above. Before he could retreat, another voice interrupted, a soft, gentle one. It was Grace, the maid. She'd seen him struggle earlier and had quietly helped him pick up a fallen tray. Now, she stood at the edge of the patio, holding fresh towels. Her eyes met his not with pity, but with understanding. "Ma'am," she said quietly, "I think that's enough." Anya turned, her voice dripping with venom. "Excuse me?" Grace didn't flinch. "Some people work harder than you'll ever know. You shouldn't talk about what you don't understand." The air went still. For a moment, David thought Anya might strike her. Instead, she sneered and waved Grace away. but the damage was done. For the first time, David saw who truly had dignity and who only pretended to. That night, David sat alone in the servant quarters, his disguise heavy on his skin. The test he'd planned to expose greed had revealed something much uglier, something society still whispered behind closed doors. And as he looked out the window toward the mansion's golden lights, one thought echoed in his mind. Sometimes, to see the truth about others, you have to let them see you as less. But the test wasn't over. The real reveal was yet to come. The grand charity gala shimmered with gold and pretense. Cameras flashed, guests whispered. And in the center of it all stood Anya, glowing, confident, and unaware that her perfect world was seconds from collapsing. The lights dimmed. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall, introducing the event's mystery guest of honor. The crowd turned as a man in a wheelchair rolled onto the stage, clothes plain, face partially shadowed. Whispers rippled through the room. Anya's smile faltered. Then the man spoke. His voice was calm, but the weight behind it silenced the noise. "I've learned a lot about people lately," he began. "How easy it is to judge worth by appearance, and how dangerous it is to mistake kindness for weakness." Anya's eyes widened. The crowd leaned forward, and then, in one slow, deliberate motion, the man lifted his cap. Gasps filled the hall. It was David. Her hand trembled. "David," she stammered. But David didn't look at her. His eyes swept across the audience, those who had ignored him when they thought he was just the help, those who had smirked at his limp, those who saw his skin before his soul. "I pretended to be disabled," he said, voice steady, "to see who would treat me like a man and who would treat me like a burden." Silence. Then, from the back of the room, Grace stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. The audience turned to watch her Maid, standing taller than any of them. "She was the only one who saw me," David said softly. "Not the money, not the mask, just me." Anya tried to speak, to defend herself, but her words dissolved in the tension that hung heavy as stone. The truth was out, and for the first time, David didn't feel anger, he felt clarity. In a room full of people pretending to care, only one heart had passed the test. He turned toward Grace, the room frozen in disbelief, and as the applause began slow, hesitant, then thunderous, David knew the world would never see him the same again. After that night, nothing was the same. The video of David's reveal spread like wildfire, shared, debated, dissected. Some praised him for his courage, others questioned his methods, but one truth cut through the noise. He had forced people to see what so many tried to ignore. Anya vanished from the spotlight, her polished image crumbling under the weight of her own words. Grace, once overlooked and underestimated, became the quiet hero of the story, proof that compassion doesn't come from status, but from strength of heart. And David? He didn't seek revenge or headlines. He used his platform to start a foundation, one dedicated to uncovering hidden bias, offering opportunities to those who had been told they didn't belong. But late at night, when the lights dimmed and the cameras were gone, David often thought back to those days he spent as the help, the looks, the whispers, the way people's tone changed when they thought he had no power. That memory stayed with him not as pain, but as purpose. Because this story was never just about one man, one house, or one cruel fiancé. It was about the quiet injustices that happen every day, the ones that don't make headlines, but leave scars all the same. We say we've come far, but moments like these remind us how far we still have to go. So the question isn't whether racism still exists. The question is, how often do we see it and choose to stay silent? Because silence protects the comfortable, but truth changes everything.